Today on the bench I have hold on, this isn't supposed to be in the shot. I have an iPhone 12 with a very shattered screen. It also fell off the top of a vehicle. I'm not sure if it was subsequently run over, which actually isn't as bad as it sounds with how dense these phones are. The hammer was just a ruse. I'm sorry to get your hopes up. The display still kind of works, at least it can tell you what carrier you have, and well, that's about it. Thanks to an Otterbox case, the back glass survived. Two pentalobe at the bottom are still holding what's left of the display to the frame, though I imagine it's very well set in the housing at this point. Sure enough, getting this metal pry tool in here is a very, very tight squeeze. I'm glad I don't have to worry about breaking the display on this one. It really can't get too much worse. With the screen freed, we can open Apple's latest budget phone like a normal book. The ribbons are still really short and bent in a way that suggests the designers almost want them to crease and snap over time. With the shield out of the way, only one screen connector is visible, the other is sandwiched underneath it, but as you should be aware by now, disconnecting the battery is pretty important. After that, it's safe to unsnap the long display ribbon, followed by the shorter one that was hidden below it. The larger shield at the top is a different shape. They went for a rectangle instead of that J-shaped shield. This one also has 4 standard-sized tri-wings holding it down. Just like the other iPhone 12s, this shield has a hook holding it in place. It needs to be lifted up and slid out. What it doesn't need is that hook. At all. I think the 4 screws would have been enough, but okay, Apple. At the top of the screen, we see the same design as the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max. Fun fact, the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro both share the exact same display panel and glass. There are 2 tri-wings and 2 Phillips head screws that need to be removed. Then the speaker can be peeled backwards. We need to pry out the proximity sensor and microphone though, then they're held in with some pretty stout adhesive. Here's a special shot. I don't usually show the heating and removal process because of difficulties with lighting and holding the display. I have my heat gun set at about 250 degrees Celsius and heat from the front of the screen for about 10 seconds with constant movement. Then some careful tweezing will get the components safely out. Lining them up in the new display isn't terribly difficult, and the ear speaker won't sit flush unless they're all in their proper place, so you can kind of use it like a guide. We've got those 4 screws to tighten back down, 2 Phillips and 2 tri-wings. Keeping things standard would be just too easy for Apple, and they have to think differently. It's time to test. I'm going to start with the short ribbon, then lay the long one over top of it and press them in. The ear speaker is next with its horribly bent design. Planned obsolescence. Finally, the battery connector is clicked back down. This one needed to be charged before it powered on. Thanks to the magic of video editing, you don't have to wait like I did. The screen is working great, displaying well, and responding to touch without issue. This phone does have some other issues, but I'll point those out in a moment. I'll power the phone off and open it back up to get those shields and screws back in place. I'll start with a small rectangle for the battery and display, tightening those 2 tri-wings. Jumping up to the top of this phone, I'll rehook the big rectangle and line it up over the 4 screw holes in the board, making sure everything's tightened down. This phone is pretty unlikely to fall apart on its own. Looking good. I'll get the screen pressed firmly back into the housing. It's still a little snug. There's likely some minor frame damage from the fall. I want it to fit, but not fracture from the pressure. 2 pentalobes to go and we're home free. So, did it come back working flawlessly? Almost. Just one big issue. The front camera is intact along with Face ID, but the rear camera? Toast. Likely pressure damage from the road. Otherwise, this one is fixed up and ready to go. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. My next video might be a phone with poop in it. Stick around.